Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. The anchor and rallying point in this edition, as compelled by key events of last week, is commitment. Construction has commenced of the infectious diseases hospital in some states, commitment to full conformity with OPEC Plus cuts of crude oil production by mid-July, and NNPC is equally asking oil companies to do same with the use of technology ahead of meeting the $10 crude oil unit production cost by next year. In this bid, the National Oil Company also expresses its direct commitment through the corporation's COO Ventures and Business Development, and then commitment towards the passage of the PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill. We'll bring you shortly how these commitments unfold in the details. My name is Akin Agbejule. This is Oil and Gas Forum.
We believe that with all of us working collaboratively together, private sector, public sector, understanding that we're on the same side, it's just that we have to tackle and solve it once and for all.
Let's take responsibility to stop the spread of the virus. Wash your hands frequently with soap under running water for about 20 seconds. Or use a hand sanitizer where water and soap are not available. Cough or sneeze into a tissue and dispose properly. Or cough or sneeze into your elbow.
Avoid large gatherings. Keep physical contact to no less than 2 meters and wear a mask whenever you are in a public space.
Clean all surfaces frequently with disinfectants. Stay in your state. If you've traveled across states or just returned from a trip abroad, self-isolate for 14 days. And if you develop symptoms like frequent cough, sneezing, fever, or shortage of breath, call your state emergency number or NCDC's toll-free number on 0800 97 00 0010. Take responsibility. Do it for yourself and the rest of us. This message is brought to you by the NCDC and funded by the NNPC IPPG team, an association of indigenous oil and gas producing companies.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, has commenced the construction of a 200-bed infectious diseases hospital in some states of the Federation. The NNPC and its oil sector's partners have also flagged up the construction of an emergency and infectious diseases hospital in Borno State. It would be recalled that the NNPC, in conjunction with her partners, Oil Producers Trade Section OPTS, Independent Petroleum Producers Group IPPG, Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria MOMAN, Depot and Petroleum Product Marketers Association of Nigeria DAPMAN, Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria PETAN, and Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Limited NLNG, among others, had launched a 21 billion naira intervention fund to combat the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. The South-South and the Northwest geopolitical zones of the country have witnessed similar flag-offs of the construction of emergency and infectious diseases hospitals in Bayelsa and Katsina State respectively, with medical supplies inclusive. Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Chief Timi Presilva said the event marked the oil industry's efforts to ensure a sustainable impact and legacy on healthcare delivery system in the Northeast region long after the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who was represented by the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olonimbe Mamora, said that the project was designed to complement and strengthen the country's national healthcare delivery facilities.
A contribution of the oil and gas intervention on the COVID-19 pandemic, and on the occasion of the groundbreaking ceremony, 150 200-bed emergency and infectious disease hospital in Maiduguri, Borno State.
In his remarks, Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum, commended the NNPC and her partners in mitigating the humanitarian crisis in the state and supporting its rebuilding efforts.
Let me also acknowledge the magnanimity with which the President, Muhammadu Buhari, handled the spread of the coronavirus pandemic that took the entire world virtually apart.
At the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the hospital in Keita local government area of Katsina State, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, said the project was under the Oil and Gas Intervention Initiative on COVID-19. The SGF, who heads the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, explained that the aim of establishing 2 infectious diseases hospitals in each geopolitical zone of the country was to enhance the country's preparedness to respond to disease outbreaks such as the COVID-19 pandemic. In his speech at the occasion, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Malam Mele Kyari, said the project, which will be funded by the corporation and her industry partners, was scheduled for completion within 18 months. Earlier, the Katsina State Deputy Governor, Alhaji Manin Yakubu, said the construction of the Infectious Diseases Hospital will complement the 160-bed COVID-19 isolation center constructed by the state government. Alhaji Manir Yakubu urged the NNPC to equip the Infectious Diseases Hospital with a testing laboratory for prompt testing of COVID-19, Ebola, Lassa fever, and other infectious diseases.
Of the 21 billion naira, which is $58 million pledged in kind as medical intervention by the Nigeria oil and gas industry to combat COVID-19 and improve on healthcare delivery in the country, 53% of the sum pledged has been earmarked for the construction of medical infrastructure across the 6 geopolitical zones in the country. Groundbreaking ceremonies for the construction of 200-bed infectious diseases hospitals with in-situ laboratory had already been held in Bayelsa, Borno, and Katsina states, with that of the other locations to follow suit. A recent report of the group's delivery schedule indicated that other medical consumables and logistics support have been delivered to 20 states and the Federal Capital Territory (FCT), while end of June 2020 is set for states yet to receive. The Group Managing Director of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, Malam Mele Kyari, who leads the intervention group, said 14 medical centers in total and 2 intensive care unit ICU expansion and upgrade will be delivered across the Federation as part of the intervention initiative. The group's governance committee, comprising managing directors of oil companies and other industry players, headed by the NNPC GMD, has also allocated 26% of the intervention funding to the deployment of logistics and inpatient support systems and 21% of the sum to provision of medical consumables across the country. All the initiatives of the respective stakeholders form part of their usual corporate social responsibility CSR program and commitments. The report said medical consumables comprising respirators, protective suits, and test kits, as well as logistics and inpatient support systems, among which are ambulances, ventilators and beddings, and laboratory equipment, have been delivered to 21 states and the Federal Capital Territory. States that have received medical consumables as well as logistics and inpatient support systems are Adamawa, Akwa Ibom, Borno, Delta, Ekiti, Enugu, Imo, Jigawa, Kwara, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, Osun, Oyo, Sokoto, Plateau, and Rivers states, as well as the FCT. Intervention is provided in kind by donors using internal transparent procurement processes driven with a clear governance structure of the various coalescing companies involved in the initiative. The Oil Industry Intervention Group is made up of the NNPC, Oil Producers Trade Section (OPTS), Independent Petroleum Producers Group (IPPG), Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria (MOMAN), Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers, Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria, and Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Limited NLNG. The Nigerian oil and gas industry, under the leadership of the NNPC, has embarked on an industry-wide collaborative intervention to combat the ravaging impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the critical sectors of the national economy. The initiative is to support the ongoing federal government's efforts and in collaboration with the Presidential Task Force and the National Center for Disease Control (NCDC) to curb the pandemic.
The Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC), Malam Kyari, has assured that Nigeria would conform 100% to the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC Plus Production Cuts Agreement by mid-July 2020. Malam Kyari gave the assurance on Gulf Intelligence GI program with Sean Evers entitled Halftime Talk. He stated that after the 11th OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial meeting, all the member countries committed to complying fully with the production cuts agreement.
All the participants have made significant efforts to come to conformity, and that will turn out to be the benefit of all. By end of June, maximum July, you will see significant conformity.
He informed that Nigeria needed to cut additional 40,000 to 45,000 barrels per day to hit the production cut agreement as prescribed by the OPEC Plus group till end of July. According to him, the challenge in managing reservoirs in Nigeria is different from other jurisdictions, requiring a plan around the wells themselves. The GMD noted that the extension of the production cuts by the OPEC Plus was geared towards rebalancing the market to avoid a collapse of crude price, as seen in early March. On the rise in shale oil production competing with the crude oil from Nigeria, Malam Kyari said the price differentials between benchmark Brent and West Texas Intermediate (WTI) is less than $1, creating a flexible market situation, noting that due to freight costs, the European market remains available to Nigerian grades and similar grades around West Africa.
It's a very flexible market situation, as you may be aware. The spread between WTI and Brent has never closed. We have never seen this close spread, less than $1 between WTI and Brent, which technically means is that there will be no incentive to move crude from the US even into Europe, because we can't get the cheaper crude because of the balancing that will be created by freight. You're sure that the market, even the European market, still remain available to Nigerian grades and similar grades around the West Africa.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) is taking measures to bring down cost of crude oil production to $10 per barrel or below. The corporation's Chief Operating Officer, COO Ventures and Business Development, Mr. Roland Eubare, has said. Mr. Eubare made the declaration on a Channels TV breakfast program, Business Morning. The COO explained that terrain peculiarity was an important factor in determining cost, arguing that issues such as pipeline vandalism and crude oil theft, among others, were some of the factors peculiar to the Nigeria terrain that drive up crude oil production costs in the country.
A good chunk of our costs come from logistics, security, and transportation charges for the crude to the export terminals. All right, those are the costs that we are relentlessly attacking and trying to drive down, so that we get to a point where our unit operating cost per barrel is sub $10.
He, however, stated that NNPC was looking very closely at such variables as logistics, security, and transportation, with a view to reducing cost of production to $10 and below per barrel. He disclosed that much had been done over the years in the area of reducing contracting cycle, which used to be a major factor responsible for high cost of production, stressing that the National Petroleum Investment Management Services, NAPIMS, achieved a 6-month contracting cycle under him as Group General Manager.
About 4 or 5 years ago, that the contracting cycle made no sense. You start a tender process for goods or services, and it will take you 3-4 years to conclude. You certainly can't operate that way. It's not efficient and doesn't make any commercial sense. So we then, came up with different ideas to contract, to sort of contract the contracting cycle. And I was in charge of that process for 2 years. I ran NAPIMS, which manages our joint venture relations, for 2 years. And that was the one item on my agenda that I focused on, with pinpoint precision. And I can tell you very, very confidently that before I left NAPIMS, we ran some very major tenders, start to finish, in less than 6 months.
The International Energy Agency IEA says global natural gas demand will chalk up its largest annual decline ever this year as it takes a double hit from coronavirus lockdown measures and an exceptionally mild winter in the northern hemisphere. Demand is set to fall by 4% or 150 billion cubic meters in 2020, equivalent to twice the annual decrease in 2009 as a result of the financial crisis, the IEA said in its Gas 2020 report. NNPC Markets Energy Intelligence reports that for comparison, global gas consumption grew by 1.8% in 2019, supported by coal-to-gas switching, which was prompted by low spot gas prices and government policy measures. Europe, North America, and Eurasia are expected to account for 75% of the decline in global gas demand this year. Meanwhile, oil futures contracts again ended higher after a negative start to trading on Wednesday as the crude market showed increasing signs of tightness of prompt oil despite U.S. tanks reaching record high levels. Rising oil prices are reflecting a prediction that the market has turned the corner and is now about to start draining oil from tanks going forward, one trader said, certainly in the U.S.
Hello, glad to have you join us on the feedback segment. My name is Julia Alta. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, went into retailing business of petroleum products since August 2002. This week, our roving camera on the street is asking Nigerians of their experience with the NNPC retail stations across Nigeria.
They don't adjust their meters here, so we want to believe we are getting the right quantity for what we are paying for.
I observe personally that when you buy fuel from here, you have the full gauge of your fuel. Okay, it will take you a long time before you return back to filling station. So going to any other filling station apart from NNPC is like a second option.
If I won't travel, if I come here, full my tank, I don't buy any fuel again till I come back.
Patronize NNPC because we believe that if you buy fuel here, they will give you complete and your fuel will not be burning like other filling stations.
Here, their liter is a liter.
Thank you very much for that perspective.
You understand? And they have good oil.
You believe
some filling stations, if you buy fuel, immediately you leave, you will see your motor begin jacking.
Their pump attendants, they are very receptive. They are very okay. So that's why I like coming here to buy my fuel.
Their service whenever you come here, they like you people to be according to your line. If your tank is in this other side and you want to change to the other side, they don't accept that. They want it to be on the left-hand side where they will sell your fuel.
LUS, they sell fuel. They disappoint. I like a filling station, NNPC. It's good filling station.
From the several testimonials, the NNPC retail stations are just your best options for petroleum products services. And that's our package for this week. Please stay tuned for the other segment of the program.
Hello! Glad to have you join us on this segment of the program. My name is Abigail Ojobo. Did you know that the Gawal oil field in Al-Asal Governorate, Eastern Province of Saudi Arabia, is ranked the largest onshore oil field in the world, holding about 50 billion barrels of oil with daily production of about 3.8 million barrels? Did you know that the Safaniya field, located in the Persian Gulf, is ranked the world's largest offshore oil field with over 60 billion barrels of oil. The Port Arthur refinery in Texas has the capacity to process 600,000 barrels of crude oil per day and ranked as the biggest refinery in the United States. Did you also know that Port Arthur refinery is 100% owned by Saudi Aramco, Saudi Arabia's national oil company? I hope you learned something. Please don't go away.
Hello and welcome to Global Crude Oil Outlook. Oil prices fell by about 4% on worries about slow demand growth as coronavirus cases rise, with United States crude stockpiles hitting an all-time high and the United States Federal Reserve saying recovery from the pandemic could take years. Brent crude futures fell 3.4% or $1.42 to $40.31 per barrel, erasing Wednesday's gains. Earlier in the session, Brent was down as much as $1.53 or 3.7%. United States West Texas Intermediate WTI crude dropped 4% or $1.60 to $38 per barrel after being down earlier as much as $1.69 or 4.3%. United States crude inventories rose unexpectedly by 5.7 million barrels in the week to June 5 to 538.1 million barrels, a record, as imports were boosted by the arrival of supplies bought by refiners when Saudi Arabia flooded the market in March and April, data from the Energy Information Administration EIA showed. EIA data also showed gasoline stockpiles grew more than expected to 258.7 million barrels. Distillate stockpiles, which include diesel and heating oil, rose by 1.6 million barrels, but the increase was smaller than in previous weeks. The market took a negative view on the stock builds, even though there were signs of improving gasoline demand as well, analysts said. Adding to the negative sentiment, the United States Federal Reserve said in its first projection of the pandemic era that the world's largest economy will shrink by 6.5% this year, with the unemployment rate at 9.3% at the end of 2020. And that's it on this segment of the program. I am Owigo Okolo.
The NNPC and its partners are coming to our aid with the logistics and from even permanent infrastructure.
Well, that's the Package and Oil and Gas Forum. Hope you found it delightsome. Hey, we're not out of the woods yet. NNPC says, keep safe and stay safe, and thanks for the commitment.